Imagine holding a small tablet between your fingers. It's dense, sticky to the touch, compressed from the dried latex of poppy flowers. The color is somewhere between amber and dark honey. You've just purchased it from a stall just off the Via Sacra near the Roman Forum, the same street where senators walk to the Curia, where merchants haggle over silk from China and garum from Spain. The vendor didn't ask questions. You didn't need a prescription. This is opium. And in the 2nd century AD, it was as ordinary a purchase as bread. Quick note, this content is educational only, based on archaeological evidence and ancient sources. Now, let us examine what this means. That tablet in your hand represents something we've almost entirely forgotten. A world where the substances we now lock behind pharmacy counters were sold openly in commercial districts. Not hidden, not shameful, simply available. The question isn't whether Romans used opium. They did. The question is how they understood it, what they thought they were buying, and why a physician to the emperor would casually direct patients to a specific vendor the way we might say the pharmacy on Main Street. Consider this. When Galen, physician to Emperor Marcus Aurelius, needed opium for his patients, he didn't send servants to back alleys. He directed them to a specific vendor just off the Via Sacra. He names the location in his writings. Casually, matter-of-factly, the opium seller near the Forum. That's how he describes it. As if everyone knew exactly where to go. And perhaps they did, because opium wasn't contraband in imperial Rome. It was medicine, part of a sophisticated pharmaceutical trade that stretched from Egypt to Persia, from the poppy fields of Asia Minor to the tabernae, the shop, stalls lining Rome's most prestigious streets. These tabernae were small, usually just 3 or 4 meters wide, open-fronted shops with wooden shutters that rolled up each morning. Inside, shelves lined with ceramic vessels, amphorae containing imported substances, dried herbs hanging from rafters, the air heavy with competing scents, sharp and earthy and sweet all at once. The vendor weighs your purchase on a bronze scale. The soft clink of this counterweights a handful of small bronze coins exchanged. The transaction takes perhaps 30 seconds. You walk back onto the Via Sacra, the tablet wrapped in linen, tucked into your belt. Around you, the city moves. Senators in togas, merchants shouting prices, the smell of baking bread from a nearby bakery. No one notices your purchase. There's nothing to notice. Evidence suggests this was entirely routine. Galen himself popularized opium for a remarkable range of ailments. Insomnia, certainly. Pain relief, particularly after surgery or injury. Chronic coughs. Even digestive complaints. His pharmaceutical texts describe opium preparations with the same clinical detachment he uses for willow, bark, or honey. And Galen wasn't alone. Dioscorides, the Greek physician, whose work became the foundation of pharmacology, for 16 centuries, dedicated substantial sections of his De Materia Medica to opium, its sources, its preparation, its medical applications. These weren't fringe figures. These were the most respected medical authorities of the Roman world, and they treated opium as a legitimate, valuable pharmaceutical tool. Let us examine how this substance actually reached Roman hands. The poppy, Papaver somniferum. Romans recognized multiple varieties, distinguishing primarily by seed color, white poppy, black poppy. But the cultivation technique remained consistent across types. Here's what Pliny, the elder, tells us. In his Natural History, written in the 1st century AD, he provides specific instructions for opium harvesting. The timing matters enormously. Wait until the 3rd hour of the day, mid-morning, when the morning dew has dried, but before the heat of midday. Why the 3rd hour? It seems that atmospheric conditions at that precise time optimize latex flow. Too early, and moisture dilutes the opium. Too late, and heat degrades the active compounds. Isn't guesswork. This is empirical observation refined over generations. The harvester takes a bronze blade, makes vertical incisions along the poppy capsule. Not too deep, or you puncture the interior and waste the latex. Not too shallow, or insufficient opium seeps out. The incisions must be precise. Practiced hands performing the same motion thousands of times across a field. The latex beads immediately. Milky white at first, sticky. You can smell it, sharp, and bitter and strangely metallic. By the next morning, it has oxidized, darkened to amber, then brown, hardened, slightly but still tacky to touch. The harvester scrapes the dried latex with a small blade. The sound is like scraping. Resin from pine bark, that brittle then sticky texture. Each poppy capsule yields perhaps half a gram of raw opium. A field of 10,000 plants produces maybe 5 kilograms. What's remarkable is not that Romans used opium. Humans have used poppies for millennia. Archaeological evidence places opium use back to Neolithic sites in the Mediterranean. But what's remarkable is that Romans had systematized its production with the precision we associate with modern pharmacy. According to Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, Book 20, Section 77, the stalk having been sliced, opium is brought forth from the black poppy. This is best done in the 3rd hour of a serene day, when the dew upon it dries up, harvesting in the 3rd hour mid-morning when atmospheric conditions optimize latex flow. This isn't folk remedy, this is pharmacology. The opium reached Rome in multiple forms. Raw tablets, like the one you purchased. Simply compressed dried latex. These were the most potent. Dissolved in wine, particularly Cretan wine, they created a powerful sleep aid. But Romans also recognized weaker preparations. Meconion, made from poppy leaves rather than latex. Less potent. Used for milder complaints or when the physician wanted greater control over dosage. And then there was theriac. Theriac deserves its own consideration. A compound medicine containing 64 separate ingredients. Opium, certainly, but also viper flesh, cinnamon from Ceylon, myrrh from Arabia, pepper from India. The recipe, attributed to Andromachus, physician to Nero, became the most famous pharmaceutical formula in the ancient world. It was supposed to cure everything, snakebite primarily, but also poisoning, plague, general malaise. The theory held that combining so many powerful substances created a universal antidote. We might imagine it as ancient Rome's version of a cure-all. Tonic. Marcus Aurelius took it daily. Galen prepared it personally for the emperor. The formula included opium as a core ingredient, and the emperor, it seems, developed a dependency. He took theriac every morning for years. When he tried to stop, he couldn't sleep, couldn't function. The most powerful man in the Roman world, dependent on an opium-based medicine prepared by the empire's most respected physician. This brings us to what Romans actually understood about opium's dangers. The popular image shows ancient people as either naive children, unaware of drug dangers, or as decadent pleasure seekers lost in chemical haze. But the evidence suggests something more familiar, a society balancing therapeutic benefit against known risk, just as we do with prescription opioids today. Dioscorides knew opium was dangerous. He documents overdose symptoms in his Materia Medica: lethargy leading to unconsciousness, respiratory, depression, death if the dose was too high. He's quite clear about this. Greek physicians, in fact, were famously cautious about opium. Some avoided prescribing it entirely, fearing the substance could cause blindness or permanent harm. This seems to have been viewed as excessive by Roman doctors. Galen essentially accuses Greek physicians of being overly paranoid, but the point remains. The medical community understood this was a powerful substance requiring careful handling, and yet it was sold openly in commercial districts near the Forum. How do we reconcile this? It seems that Romans distinguished between medical use and recreational abuse. The opium you purchased wasn't for pleasure. It was for pain, for insomnia, for cough. The social context mattered. A sick person buying medicine from a known vendor was acceptable. Someone seeking intoxication for its own sake was viewed differently, though even then, Roman moralists focused more on wine excess than opium. What archaeology shows us is that opium residue appears across social strata. Military camps at the frontier, urban households in Pompeii, elite villas, temple complexes. This wasn't confined to any particular class or group. It was mainstream, and the trade was integrated into legitimate commerce. Galen warns about quality differences. He mentions that certain vendors in Naples sold inferior products, that authentic Persian nardinum was preferable to local imitations. These are concerns about product quality and sourcing. The same concerns you'd have buying any imported commodity. Specific vendor districts existed. The Via Sacra location Galen mentions. The Saplasia district in Capua, famous throughout Italy for pharmaceutical and perfume vendors. These weren't hidden locations. They were known commercial centers. The tablet you purchased near the Forum came through a trade network spanning thousands of kilometers. Poppy cultivation in Asia Minor or Egypt. Harvest and processing using techniques refined over centuries. Transport by ship to Ostia, Rome's port. Distribution through merchant networks to retail vendors. Quality assessment by physicians who knew which suppliers were reliable. This was a system, not chaos, not a free-for-all. A functioning pharmaceutical supply chain. Let us consider what remains. The poppies still grow. Papaver somniferum. The same species. Romans cultivated. The same alkaloids in the latex. Morphine, codeine, thebaine. The chemistry hasn't changed across 2 millennia. The pain they treated persists. Broken bones, surgical recovery, chronic illness, terminal disease. The human need to manage suffering is constant across time, and the knowledge itself endured. Dioscorides De Materia Medica remained the authoritative pharmacological text for 1600 years. Well into the Renaissance, physicians consulted Dioscorides for drug information. The Roman understanding of opium, its benefits and dangers, literally shaped Western medicine until the modern era. What changed then? Not the substance, not the molecule, not even the medical applications, really. Opium derivatives remain essential in modern pain management. Morphine, codeine, synthetic variants designed to minimize addiction risk while preserving analgesic effect. What changed was the legal and moral framework, the cultural understanding of what this substance represents. That small tablet, purchased without ceremony near the Forum 2,000 years ago, would now require locked cabinets, federal tracking, criminal penalties for unauthorized possession. The opium hasn't changed. Perhaps what's changed is our confidence that we can manage what the Romans knew required caution. That boundary between remedy and poison, between the relief we seek and the dependency we fear. Romans didn't solve this tension. Neither have we. We've simply chosen different mechanisms for managing it. Standing at a pharmacy counter today with a prescription for an opioid painkiller, you're separated from that Roman vendor's stall by 2 millennia of history. And yet, the transaction is fundamentally similar. An exchange, legal, authorization, a powerful substance that relieves suffering and carries risk. The trust that the system, imperfect as it is, maintains some balance between access and control. The distance between that taberna, just off the Via Sacra, and a modern pharmacy is not as far as we imagine. It's just that we've forgotten how ordinary this once was. How unremarkable it was to walk up to a stall in the shadow of the Forum and purchase a tablet of compressed opium the way you'd purchase olive oil or garum or bread. The vendor closes his shutters as evening falls, the wooden slats rolling down, the sound echoing off the marble facades lining the street. Tomorrow he'll open again, another day, another stream of customers, seeking remedies for pain, for sleeplessness, for the ailments that have troubled humans since we first walked upright. The tablet dissolves slowly in wine, the bitter taste, the gradual onset of relief, and somewhere in that moment, across the gulf of centuries, something connects, the same plant, the same need, the same human attempt to ease suffering with whatever tools we possess.